Howdy ho H2Os, Roller Bros, and Sydney Johnsons alike. I'm your guide Q, and welcome back to some delightfully awful MLM stories of people trying to get recruited by MLMs and stuff and sharing their terrible experiences. So let's get right into the horror show. First of all, I gotta say I love your channel and I'm really grateful that people like you are spreading the word on MLMs, and your other content is very entertaining. Thank you so much, that's very kind of you. I personally enjoy the longer commentary since you have such a great voice. That's also very nice. Also, please keep my identity anonymous if you end up using this. I will surely do that. So my mom has been involved with some kind of MLM for as long as I can remember, since back in the Amway days before I was even born. She bought into the whole lifestyle and has ruined 4 marriages due in large part to the financial strain of her addiction to MLMs. She has even secretly taken out loans and credit cards in family members' names to pay off debts from purchasing too much stock that she can't get rid of, including scamming my grandfather, her dad, out of his life savings when he was in his 70s for Herbalife, and taking the money that my dad was putting into a savings account for my college to spend on beauty control. She also took a check I had given her of money I had saved up to buy my first car, cashed in the check, then turned around and wrote a bad check for the car, causing her to get arrested during her lip sense days. I was 17. I'm still not sure how my car didn't end up getting repoed as a result. She's tried over and over again to lure all of our family members into whatever MLM she is in that will free our lives. For the past 10 years or so, it's been a company called Send Our Cars. As far as I can tell, this one flies under the radar and doesn't seem to have too much scandal associated with it, but make no mistake, it is a true MLM. She has dumped well over $100,000, yes, and countless hours into this company with absolutely nothing to show for it. There's actually a lot more as well, but it's just too much to include here, and I find out new shenanigans pretty regularly. She came out to visit me. She lives in Florida, I live in Colorado, when I had my son last year. About a week after I gave birth, knowing that I have anxiety and have suffered from postpartum depression in the past, she sat me down and asked for $200,000 so that she could pay off some debt and invest in her company. She asked so nonchalantly, like she was asking to use my car or something. She hasn't worked consistently for many years and would be retired if it weren't for the MLMs. I totally broke down crying and told her there was no way we could do that, and explained to her that we were saving for our kids' future and expanding our family. I totally broke down crying and told her there was no way we could do that, and explained to her that we were saving for our kids' future and our expanding family. I gave her the option to move in with us and find a part-time job and save some money which we would match to invest in a house. But she would have to cut Send Out cards out of her spending budget. She did it for months, but she never did get a job and has since moved out. Her choice, not mine, and is back to spending money on cards and networking. My husband and I are really lucky, and he's got a killer job that allows me to stay home with our kids and gives him the potential to retire pretty early. Since we were teen parents, we were really looking forward to having that future time for us, but we both know it's only a matter of time before she has to depend on us to pay off more debt, and she will probably keep him working much longer or forcing me to go back to work sooner, or both if we want to send our kids to college. She wants to live to be 100, but has no plans on financially supporting herself in her old age, and she's only 63 now. I am so torn. Of course I want to take care of my mom, but it feels like rewarding bad behavior at this point. I'm an only child, so there are no siblings to count on either. She absolutely refuses to acknowledge the fact that her business is a total fraud and is not going to lead to her financial freedom. She insists that MLMs help single mothers and are empowering to women. The fact is that they exploit women, and especially single mothers, by luring them in and making them believe that people make a crap ton of money for doing next to nothing. Her involvement has gotten so much worse over the years, and I think she is determined to keep at it since she has already spent so much time and money. I don't know what to do with her. I guess the silver lining is that I've grown up watching this self-destructive behavior, and it's inspired me to be the exact opposite, so I actually plan for the future and save my money so that my kids will hopefully not have to take care of me one day. Don't do MLMs, kids. This is extremely sad because this woman seems like a gambling addict or something like that, where she's just like, if I can just get the money for this next big play, I will be out on top and everything will work out. I just need to gamble the mortgage for the house and then everything is going to come together and be fine. I mean, when she refused to get a part-time job when she was living with you, it became obvious that she doesn't want to actually, like, do the work to slowly get out of it. She just still believes in the myth that MLMs are going to be this quick fix and are going to be a good way to earn money fast and fix all the mistakes you've ever made. Hey Q, like you say, let's jump right into the cringe. Specifically an MLM story that happened to me in real life. There may be some weird phrasing here, I'm not a native speaker, but I hope it's clear anyway. The story is actually very well written. I was working in retail back then. The hun comes in and approaches me, looks at all the stuff we have and asks me about it, spends about 15 minutes in the store and buys nothing. A classic, really. I wasn't disappointed because my bonuses weren't based on personal sales, but on the monthly amount the store made in sales, and I honestly hate retail and would never go back. Anyway, the hun says she will be coming back because you're just so nice. Would you like a free wellness test? We're just 5 minutes away from your workplace. She hands me this flyer with her number written on it and asks me to call or text her if I'm interested and walks out. Now, I suspected something fishy from the moment I saw the flyer. No company name, nothing but a stock image of a girl, wellness test in huge letters and a short vague description, so I suspected they would try to put me on a diet or something, and boy was I right. I had nothing to do after work, so I thought, hey, why not see where this is going? Texted her and arranged a meeting after my next morning shift. I know this may have been a stupid thing of me because I've heard a story of an MLM, teens group specifically, I actually haven't heard of that, holding a guy hostage, but I only heard it a year after this story happened to me. Otherwise, I would have freaked out and it would have ended the moment she stepped out of the store. Skip to the day of my morning shift. The hun texted me several times this day and a few days before, making sure I was still coming. Finally, I arrive at her place, a small office space. And what do you know? The walls are covered in Herbalife posters. My first thought was, what the heck? I thought this died years ago. Funny thing is, when I was telling this story to my parents, that was exactly what they said too when I got to this moment. I didn't ask questions and just acted like everything was normal. I wanted to see what she was going to do. She asked me to take my coat and boots off and weigh myself on a scale which, according to her, measured my lean mass, calcium amounts, visceral fat, etc. Not very familiar with those, so this may not have been complete BS. Sounds like it though. Once I did, she printed out the results, started circling something with red and green pens, then called me over to her table. Turns out I was nearly perfectly healthy. The test showed that I lacked calcium and muscle mass, which was actually true, but I believe they wouldn't outright lie, as half-truths tend to be way more convincing. And then she got to my weight. Her expression was horrified. She pointed out the number on the sheet of paper, looked me deep in the eyes, and asked with disgust almost spilling out of her mouth, "Are you content weighing this much?" Now the thing is, I'm about 1.67 meters tall, which is 5 foot 6 inches. At the time, I weighed 52 kilos, about 114 pounds. I knew for sure because I weighed myself beforehand, and also maintained this weight for about a year since then. The number she was showing me was 56 kilos, about 123 pounds. Not that many, but still inaccurate, and I couldn't help but point that out. She started arguing with me, saying that my scales were wrong, but I wouldn't budge because I knew they weren't. I actually weighed myself at other people's houses over the year, so I was absolutely certain that's what my weight was. She gave up on that, but then she brought out a booklet and said, this is how much you should weigh normally. It listed 47 to 49 kilos for the tall and slender body type, 49 to 52 for the athletic type, and 52 to 55 for the short and chubby type. According to the hun, I was the tall and slender one. She measured my wrist and compared it to the measurements in the booklet. Now this is where I almost burst into laughter because that was just complete BS. I was somewhat underweight before and used to go without food for a long time, not voluntarily. I didn't even weigh 47 kilos when I ate almost nothing for 5 days a week and binging on whatever I could reach for on the other two, so I knew that one surely was BS. The one time I weighed something around that was when I went a week without food because of stress, in addition to previously mentioned disordered eating, so that one just screamed BS to me. I politely declined her offers to become my dietitian and waste my money on Herbalife products. I'm surprised she didn't try to recruit me. The hun asked if I'm happy with that weight like 5 more times, then gave up when I wouldn't budge again. She then asked me to give her my friends' or family's numbers if I think they may be interested. The only person I could think of was my grandma, who's a pretty gullible old lady and would absolutely be the type to fall for this scam, which is specifically why I said no. I don't have anyone on my mind repeatedly, like 3 times overall. The hun was visibly disappointed and finally let me go. She pestered me for a couple days afterwards, trying to find out if I got anyone interested in the wellness test, to which I always replied no. Then she gave up completely and the story has finally ended. It's been a year since that happened. I started being more fit and active, my eating habits are healthy again, I drink plenty of water, and my weight is now around those dreaded 56 kilos. I'm still very happy weighing this much, hon. Okay, so I know that BMI isn't a perfect system by any means, but the high end of the weight area that this hunbot said that this woman should be in is still a full point under the underweight threshold of BMI. So I think this just goes to show the absolute level of desperation that this hunbot and a lot of hunbots or MLM representatives are dealing with. They are just pushing so hard, and I know that a lot of marketing is built around making you feel subtly like you're not good enough and that you need their product to be a proper, functioning, healthy, cool person, but this is just so blatant and disgusting because it's inaccurate, and that just pisses me off. So this next story comes to us from @CastDelilah on Twitter, and it's very, very sad and infuriating. If you can believe it, it's the most infuriating out of all 3 of these stories, so brace yourselves. Okay, so just as a heads up, this story does involve a little bit of talk of abuse, addiction, and death at the beginning and a little bit throughout, so just a heads up if that sort of thing bothers you. Hey Q, I got a story about the sleaziness of some Amway boss babe huns for you. I realize this is super long, so feel free to summarize parts if you want to use it in a video. This took place in 2017. Some backstory for reference. Unfortunately, my father was an emotionally and mentally abusive alcoholic. My mom joined Al-Anon, a support group for family of alcoholics, around 2007, where she became quite close with several older women. They would go out to lunch together or to get ice cream after meetings. She didn't have many close friends due to how miserable of a person my father was to interact with. Longtime family friends either drifted away or straight up cut ties after my father stole from them, so I was really happy she had some positive relationships. Well, in 2016, my father's body gave up on him and he passed away from organ failure after several days in the ICU. I'm very sorry for your loss. My mom was understandably vulnerable at the time. He had, at one time, been the man she loved before his addiction turned him into the abusive person I knew. She was dealing with a confusing mix of relief, grief, guilt, on top of being worried sick about hospital bills. The ICU ain't cheap. She shared all of this, in particular her money worries, with her Al-Anon friends. Enter the hun. Hun was maybe 10 to 15 years older than my mom. She had the composed classiness of a lady, nothing like the hashtag girl bosses of Facebook, so maybe that's why she seemed trustworthy. She took my mom to one of those brainwashy Amway meetings where you watch videos of all the luxuries passive income can buy you, and some rich person from the top of the pyramid talks about how easy it is. My mom is not a foolish person, and we would regularly joke about the schemes we noticed online. I truly believe the reason the hun never pitched Amway in the almost decade before was because she knew my mom wouldn't fall for it. She waited until my mom was vulnerable and emotional and pounced. Next thing I know, boxes of Amway products are showing up at our house. Some were free samples, but others were ones she was pressured into buying in order to have product on hand to show to potential customers. All the Al-Anon Amway ladies flocked around my mom buying from her for the first few months. If you sold a certain amount of products in the first few months in Amway, you got a bonus. My mom earned those bonuses because of the other ladies buying from her, and they made her feel good about her work. Looking back, it's obvious what they were doing. Get the mark into the scheme, make them feel good and like making money will be easy, and then set them loose to recruit more marks. Hun, my mom's upline, began pressuring her to work on selling on her own. She had to make lists of people she could invite to Amway parties. She had to start buying all of her own soap, vitamins, etc. from Amway for ridiculous prices, or she wasn't supporting her company. She had to buy and listen to these brainwashy CDs about how to sell the opportunity of Amway. I watched my mom get more and more discouraged as these women chastised her for not doing enough. My mom is not built to harass people. She's too kind for that. Her upline heard that my godmother was diabetic, and you could practically see the dollar signs in the Hun's eyes as she asked my mom constantly to get my godmother onto the special Amway diabetic diet, shakes, vitamins, whatever they were. My mom felt terrible asking my godmother to spend money she didn't have, and equally bad telling Hun no, so she bought the diet stuff with her own money just to get Hun off her back. Then the Hun began pestering her to go to a big Amway conference a state away. My mom was practically in tears when she told me how much Hun was on her back about it. We were only just starting to get the bills from the hospital in and had no idea yet how much insurance would cover. She could not afford to fly to another state, get a hotel, etc., and furthermore, she didn't want to. Luckily, she put her foot down on that one and said no way. Then it all came to a head. The Hun was trying to convince my mom to get me into Amway. One thing she did was give my mom some sort of sample energy drink thing for me. You know how energy drinks have a warning about not drinking too many or not drinking them at all if you're too sensitive to caffeine? Those warnings are for people like me. Hun swore these energy drinks were different. They had no caffeine and used B vitamins. So my mom passed it on to me, and I was like, sure, I'm a scavenger. If someone wants to give me a free soda, I'll take it. I trusted my mom, and my mom trusted Hun, and unfortunately for me, the Hun was a lying liar who lies, because this drink made me start to feel really weird, and when I read the teeny two-sized font on the packaging, there was a caffeine warning. I spent 5 hours feeling like my heart was going to vibrate out of my chest, and then another 5 miserable with a headache. My mom was pissed. The Hun swore she hadn't known, but the damage was done. It had been around 4 to 5 months, and the emotional upheaval of my father's death had started to settle. My mom had come to peace with things and was finally able to start enjoying the new life we had with him gone. We learned insurance was going to cover a lot, and the hospital would take a payment plan. The fog lifted. My mom decided she would stop paying her Amway fees and let the whole thing fizzle out. Hun was not pleased. She came over to our house one evening to make a last attempt at keeping my mom in the cult. I was only half listening from my room, but what I heard was so creepy. She kept saying things like, "This company is about love. We bring people into it because we love them. I brought you into this because I would look at you and think, God gave me this opportunity to bless someone in financial straits, and I simply must share it. I did this out of love," in the weirdest, breathiest voice. I could practically hear my mom recoiling as she held open our door and was like, okay, thank you, good night. And just like that, the Hun and all the other women dropped her. No more invitations out, no more calls to chat. 10 years of apparent friendship no longer meant anything. I'm very thankful that by this point my mom had new support structures in her life and was disgusted with Amway, so the loss wasn't as devastating as it could have been. It's downright frightening to imagine how painful such an ostracism would be to someone without any other support, and that behavior sickens me. There is just so much that disgusts me about this story, just like it disgusts the daughter of this woman. Like, the fact that she waited all of that time until the mother was vulnerable, lied about the products, kept encouraging her mother to buy more and more stuff and recruit in other people. It's just gross. And it's this sort of opportunism that most people that aren't in a cult would completely find disgusting. Like, if you're a car salesman and somebody's car breaks down for the 5th time and you're like, hey, this is a good opportunity to maybe tell my friend about this cheap car that we have on the lot that he can get back on his feet and stop having to repair his car, like, that's okay. This sort of thing is just disgusting. You're waiting until somebody's at their weakest so that they won't be skeptical to your disgusting scheme. You and your mother are extremely fortunate that your mother's a smart and strong woman and she was able to create a support group, so this wasn't as damaging to her as it could have been for other people, just like you said. And I'm just glad that everything worked out. Like, rest in peace. I'm sorry that you lost your father, but I'm glad that you and your mother are recovering well. And it's just such a nasty story. I feel so bad for both of you. And this is one more thing that I wanted to show you before I awkwardly transition into telling you about my Twitch stream tonight. This is from the FTC.gov website. That's the Federal Trade Commission, I believe, and it compares MLM profit and loss rates versus other opportunities of making money. Now, a wage earner is somebody like you or me that makes an hourly wage or gets a salary from a company. They're always going to profit over their expenses because the expenses are extremely low and they're getting paid regularly. Now, compare that to small businesses. 39% of people profit over their expenses. Classic no product pyramid schemes, 10% of people profit over their expenses. Gambling roulette at Caesar's Palace in Vegas is 2.9% of people profit over expenses, compared to a product-based pyramid scheme or recruitment-driven MLMs, which is pretty much all of them. 0.4% of people involved in recruitment-driven MLMs profit over their expenses. Just let that sink in for a second. You are 5 times more likely to be profitable gambling at Caesar's Palace than being involved in an MLM. Genetically Modified Skeptic has used this chart a lot in his videos about MLMs. I don't know why I haven't brought it up in the past, but this is a really amazing example of the actual failure rate of people that get involved in MLMs. I might talk about all of this in a video where I just explain MLMs as sort of a place to drive people when they want to learn more, if they aren't familiar with this series on my channel. But anyway, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is not a pyramid scheme, just an opportunity to hang out. I think I'm going to be playing Amnesia: The Dark Descent or Overwatch or watching videos. I'm not exactly sure yet. Sorry to be so vague, but hop over there to see what's going on. Twitch.tv/yourq, as in the queue that belongs to you. I'd like to see you there. So I will see you guys very soon. That's going to be in the description down below. I might put it in the comments as well. Make sure you are drinking more water. Skate on to the best of your abilities. Be safe and skeptical out there, and I will see you very soon.